Coming up, Fort Scott police investigate a person of interest in a double homicide.
Finally above the freezing point for a Thursday morning, and as we get ready for the weekend, we're going to break down that system you see out in the west.
Also, healthcare providers in Oklahoma and Kansas see a massive increase in women from Texas seeking abortion services.
The 4 states' most watched news starts now.
Good morning and welcome to the KOAM Morning News. It's 5 a.m. I'm Tanya Bach. We'll get to those stories in just a moment. But first, let's go to Michael Hayslip, where it's starting not to feel like winter.
First time this week we've had a morning where we don't have to worry about scraping off the windshield. Not even close to the freezing point, well above it. As a matter of fact, 36 is the lowest that we see right now in Oswego. We've already got mid-40s that we're rolling. 46 in Joplin, 45 in both Carthage and Miami, Chanute at 43. So and the big thing is not only the little cloud cover that gathered, but also too, now that we've got the wind coming in from the south makes a huge difference. You also notice too, is coming in at double digits, starting to clear off a little bit out to the west. The majority of the 4 states though going to wake up with mostly cloudy skies. Starting to develop a little bit of a low pressure system out there west side of the Rockies. Hasn't presented any travel delays as of yet, but it'll become more widespread in a vertical fashion from north to south, more so than trying to make it through the Midwest. We're going to be up into the 60s today. Great looking Thursday. Once again, abnormally warm temps as we get ready for a Christmas weekend. We're still throwing that 72 up on Friday and looking like partly sunny and 64 for Christmas Day.
Not too shabby. I love that.
And the overnight lows, no complaints on those either, considering we'll be wrapping up December there by the time the 7-day forecast concludes next week.
All right, sounds great. Thanks, Michael. Authorities have found a person of interest in a double murder case in Fort Scott. On Tuesday, the Fort Scott Police Department responded to a 911 call from a resident who found their family members' bodies. KOAM's Bronte Sorotsky has details on that murder and the status of the person of interest in the case.
It's pretty quiet. We hear occasional hot rod running by, but really not much. Anytime there's any activity downtown, we're close, so that kind of we catch that. But yeah, it's pretty quiet.
The community of Fort Scott was put on high alert Wednesday when news of a double homicide broke. Michael Cheney lives nearby the house where the murders occurred and says he didn't know what was going on at first.
My first notice was a police siren that I heard, and it just went for a second until he stopped up there. It wasn't too long until my niece, I have a niece that lives with us, so her friends had heard it. So it was the grapevine is how we heard it. And so they contacted her and she contacted us, and then another friend sent me a text.
On Tuesday, the Fort Scott Police Department received a 911 call from a resident at 402 Main Street who came home to find their family member had been shot. When police arrived, they discovered 48-year-old Melissa L. Mitchell, who had died from a gunshot wound, as well as 53-year-old Leonard D. Zimmerman, dead in the home. The victim's son, 23-year-old Dawson J. Mitchell, is a person of interest wanted for questioning.
Yeah, the police, of course, around the house confirmed something was going on with the crime tape and all that.
Mitchell was arrested around 1 p.m. Wednesday for theft of a firearm, possession of a firearm by a convicted felon, and unlawful possession of controlled substances. In Fort Scott, Bronte Sorotsky, KOAM News.
At last report, the 23-year-old had not been charged related to the murders. Kansas Governor Laura Kelly is proposing to give residents who pay income taxes a one-time rebate of $250. Governor Kelly outlined the proposal on Wednesday. The Republican-controlled legislature would have to approve the plan, and GOP lawmakers are expected to have proposals for ongoing income tax cuts instead of one-time rebates. Lawmakers' next annual session convenes January 10th. Governor Kelly said such rebates would be possible because Kansas has been collecting more in tax revenues than expected for months. Her proposal would provide $250 to individuals and $500 to married couples filing jointly. About 1.2 million filers would receive a total of $445 million. The Kansas Forest Service has revised down the number of acres burned in last week's wildfires. The agency posted on Facebook that around 163,000 acres burned on December 15th, not the 400,000 that was first estimated. The Forest Service and the National Interagency Fire Coordination Center are using a new satellite data system to map ongoing wildfires. Service says that as heat, dust, and smoke cleared, the satellite was able to get a clearer picture. The fires claimed 2 lives. Restrictive abortion laws in Texas that went into effect in September mean right now women are crossing the border to Oklahoma and Kansas for abortion services. The Trust Women Clinic says they saw fewer than 10 Texas patients in its Oklahoma and Kansas facilities before the Texas law went into effect. Now they're seeing more than 100 women a month. They say they're struggling to keep up with the rush. Oklahoma has 3 abortion laws on a temporary injunction right now. They were supposed to go into effect November 1st. New cases and hospitalizations from COVID-19 are surging throughout Missouri, and health leaders are warning of an approaching perfect storm if more people do not get vaccinated or take other precautions. Missouri is now seeing a 7-day average of daily new cases of more than 3,000. The average dipped below 1,000 in October. Meanwhile, hospitals are becoming overwhelmed in both the St. Louis and Kansas City areas, even before Christmas gatherings and before the fast-moving Omicron variant fully takes hold. Oklahoma health officials say they've detected the state's first confirmed case of the Omicron COVID-19 variant. The Oklahoma State Department of Health did not release any information about where the case originated or whether the person was vaccinated. The fast-spreading Omicron coronavirus variant is causing a surge in the purchase of at-home COVID tests. So much that 2 of the largest pharmaceutical chain stores in the U.S., CVS Health and Walgreens, are limiting the number of tests a person can buy. In a statement, CVS said, quote, "To ensure equitable access to tests in both in-store and digitally, we've added a limit of 6 test kits per purchase. That's 2 more than Walgreens is allowing." But Americans may soon be able to get free tests in the mail. On Tuesday, the Biden administration announced the purchase of a $500 million at-home rapid tests to send to people. 5:07.
Temperatures right now ranging from 36 to 46. Much better than what we've had past couple of days. We're going to have to tolerate pretty good south wind, gust up to 30 miles per hour. But it does bring us temps that are all the way up into the 60s today. Keep on challenging that record for Christmas Eve, 73 at Joplin Regional Airport. And that thing dates back to 1955, that 73 does.
That's a look at this morning's top stories and weather in our first 7 minutes. Coming up on the KOAM Morning News, our own Danny Terzar introduces us to a Pittsburgh high school wrestler who's quickly finding success on the mat. Plus, dogs from an Iowa puppy mill get a helping hand and a new chance at forever homes. And researchers in Wisconsin look beneath the waves to find new weapons in the fight against COVID. You're watching the KOAM Morning News. More real news in the morning. We'll be right back.
Last night, the final football game of the season for the Missouri Tigers as Mizzou was in Fort Worth, Texas, facing Army. It was the Armed Services Bowl, only the 5th time in history that these 2 teams had met, and the first time since 1982. Now, after going 6-6 in the regular season and actually leading this thing at 13-7, Army kicks a field goal as time expires to win it 24-22. Army is now 4-0 all-time in the Armed Forces Bowl, finishes the season at 9-4. Mizzou's final record as they wrap up 2021 will read 6 wins, 7 losses. A Pittsburgh high school wrestler has found some early success in her first season on the mat, and she's doing it after only a few weeks of practice. KOAM's Danny Terzar has the story.
For Sierra Deerling, wrestling comes naturally.
I think a lot is her natural athletic ability. She's super strong. She's one of the strongest girls in our school, pound for pound. And she works hard. She's a straight A student. She's a coach's dream. She comes in wanting to learn, wanting to get better, and she's easy to coach.
Deerling started wrestling a little over a month ago. She's found success early on.
The girls' wrestling program is newer, so they were looking for girls who might be good at it. And so they were kind of just asking around, and I figured, why not?
I think her first week or two, she kind of battled and struggled a little bit and got frustrated because she wasn't great right away, you know. And but she's done everything to improve and get better.
It's halfway through the season and a little over a month into Deerling's career. She's 11-3 with 8 wins by pin, and she's holding her own against some of the best in the state.
She lost one more match her first tournament to a girl she was beating like 10-2 and just got in a bad spot and a little inexperienced. Then she went on a tear and hasn't lost a match since then until the Bobcat Classic where she took 3rd place.
I've always just kind of wanted to be better, just go out there and see how far I can get. So I know we always say what you put in, like you get, so just try to put in hard work and see where it gets me.
Here is a perfect example of her work ethic. She's working one-on-one with her coach over Christmas break.
She's always trying to find extra ways to get better, always willing to put in the extra work, and that's why she's having the success she is.
It's kind of exciting because I know I've only been wrestling once, so I can go further if I wanted to.
I see her being a state champion before she's done with this program.
In Pittsburgh, Danny Terzer, KOAM Sports.
Special thanks to Sarah and Coach Davis there for their time for Danny's story. Sarah and the Purple Dragons off the rest of 2021, going to return to action next year on January the 6th. Colgan girls basketball team off to a hot start this season. Panthers 4-0, and that includes a 2-0 mark in CNC league play. Won those 4 games by an average of more than 40 points a game. Colgan getting big-time production out of some young players to start the year. Junior Lauren Torrance. She's averaging 11 points, 5 rebounds per game. Sophomore Lily Brown has been on fire. How about 23 points, 12 rebounds per night, helping the team end 2021 with a perfect record.
I feel like running the court has really helped for me. I've been able to see the court a lot better this year compared to last year. It's just kind of crazy how much one year just kind of, I don't know, boosts your confidence.
She's doing a great job rebounding. I mean, she can jump out of the gym and she can run the floor, and she's doing a really good job of, finding the openings and the seams, rebounding, and she runs the floor really well. So she's just she's tough to guard.
Immediately as I put the ball on the floor for transition, I'm looking up for her down the court. She's sprinting as hard as she can, and she gets boards really well too. She's had a couple double-doubles, as you've seen probably. So she's really improved, and I'm proud of her.
Congratulations to Colgan on that start right there. Chiefs tight end Travis Kelsey. He is your AFC Offensive Player of the Week. Actually, the first time he's won that award for the first time in his career. What a monster game he had against the Chargers on Thursday. 10 catches, a career-high 191 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And, of course, one of those happened to be that catch right there, the game winner in overtime. On the season, Kelsey, 1,066 yards, 7 touchdowns, and 83 receptions. News, the UK reports more than 100,000 COVID-19 cases on Wednesday, crossing the 100,000 threshold for the first time since the pandemic began. And a check on our 7-day forecast when the KOAM Morning News returns.
Hey, sports fans.
If you've got your phone on you this morning, keep it handy here. We're going to develop a new way to get you to the KOAM News Now Instapoll. We'll get to that here in just a little bit. And one of those things where we'll pop it up not only for the rest of the show, but we'll run this probably into next week as well. So just wanted to give you a heads up on that in case you got it sitting by you, give you a chance to snap a picture. And eventually it'll take you right to the poll. Let's talk a little weather before we get there. 46 degrees right now over 7th and Rangeline. Far cry from the freezing temps that we had earlier this week. Wind hasn't gone anywhere, still moving in at 13 miles per hour, but providing us with anywhere from 36 to 46. No reason to worry about scraping the windshield. Are going to have a little bit of a wind risk today because it'll gust up to 30 miles per hour. Already seeing sustained double-digit winds and a 24-hour temperature change, though, that's anywhere from, say 13 to 19 degrees warmer on this Thursday morning than what we had yesterday. It was a twofold factor. Number one, the south wind definitely helped, but also too, as did the overnight cloud cover. Still a little thick up to the north right there, beginning to clear out for the central and to the west. No rain associated with it. We are dry as can be. The next system that we're starting to watch work in really hasn't done a whole lot of development, but it will north and southwise. They'll get a good batch of snow here in the upper elevations. And then California is being dominated by an atmospheric river. You can tell right there from the jet stream where it's just constantly bringing in that Pacific moisture. And a little bit of a wet holiday if you go out to the west, but as of yet, it hasn't caused any airport delays. Our afternoon planner is going to lift us up into the low 60s today. And, you know, that's probably about 15, 16 degrees above normal. And then overnight, we're going to call it warm because these overnight lows, quite frankly, are warmer than what we'd anticipate for having a December afternoon. Give you an idea of where we're headed then as far as Christmas Eve and any of that green that we see pop up, not even going to be able to hit the ground. We just keep on rolling through with the warmth, not only each and every afternoon. Look at the overnight lows, all the way up in the 60 there in between Christmas Eve day and Christmas Day. Still looking at mostly sunny skies and a high around 65 for Christmas. Time now to turn our attention to the KOAM News Now Facebook page, our morning Insta poll. And like I said, if you've got your camera handy, keep it with you here. About 150 dogs raised in an Iowa puppy mill are getting a helping hand from Kansas City, Missouri. A rescue operation called Wayside Waifs took the dogs in and now is helping raise those dogs and adjust to life in a big world. Alan Shope went to watch the training in action.
We're trying to just see any kind of progress towards them finding real life situations less scary.
It's called a Team Age Play Group at Wayside Waves.
We bring all the dogs in and let them have kind of a space to roam around.
Puppy mill dogs that are confused. It's a twice-a-day session with relaxing music and just space to move.
They live most, if not their entire lives, in crates while they're in a puppy mill. Circles is really all they kind of can do.
Circling, pacing, trying to figure out freedom.
Being able to have that curiosity and explore things without being completely terrified.
Jacob says the simple things like taking food from humans can all be a struggle because they don't know people.
I mean, if you had never been around another person your entire life, you probably wouldn't really know how to react to seeing a person for the first time.
Being on a couch, hearing a television or a doorbell, it really scares them.
Of the nearly 150 dogs Wayside got from that Iowa puppy mill, almost 50 of them are still here. Casey says that's because many of these animals have never interacted with humans before, and that's what these classes are all about.
We're big, scary things to them, so they have to figure out how to interact with us and what we are.
Jacob says after several weeks of these classes, even these dogs will find a forever home.
Feel like helping out? Don't even need to live nearby to donate, as Wayside Waifs posts needed items on its Amazon wish list. Bringing us to our question this morning. How did you come about your pets? Gave you about 5 different options on there. Now, if you've got that phone handy, here's another way to get to the Insta poll. All you have to do is take a picture of that QR code and it'll deliver you right to the site. So now we've got 3 ways to connect. Via our Facebook page at KOAM News Now. Go directly to the poll, koamnewsnow.com/vote, or snap a picture of the Insta poll QR code and we will get you there in a heartbeat. And like I said, we'll continue to run that picture there and give you multiple opportunities to snap that on your phone should you choose to do so. We will be back with Healthwatch right after this.
Due to a CBS.
Topping Healthwatch this morning, the loss of a loved one is never easy, and the holidays are really difficult for families who've gone through a loss or other tragedy. Springfield area family talked with Joe Hickman about some ways to navigate through those heartbreaking times.
This recent photo of the Caldwell family includes a blanket on the shoulder of 10-year-old Claire, who's now the exact same age as the owner of that blanket, her sister Abigail, who died in 2018.
The death of a child, oftentimes people will say, is the worst thing anyone could live through. But holidays, Christmas, her birthday, put spotlights on her absence.
All the traditions are about family, so it makes sense that's going to be painful.
Abigail was a healthy, normal youngster 3 years ago when she started taking the antibiotic Bactrim for acne on her scalp.
19 days after taking the Bactrim, she developed a fever. The fever rapidly progressed into lung failure. She was taken to St. Louis Children's Hospital where she coded, so her heart stopped. I know it's not my failure, but that's what we're working through.
She's working through it with the help of the Lost and Found Grief Center, where families learn to find their own ways through the holiday pain, like making new traditions.
I will never have another Christmas with Abigail. And so stop trying to achieve whatever a Christmas with her was like, because it can't happen.
If you have other children, you've got to do something for them.
We do have Claire, so I ended up giving her my Amazon account and said, pick out a tree, honey. And it brings joy. It's not a center of sadness and what's not there. When you look at this tree, you cannot help but laugh.
Amy and her family are still a work in progress, but her advice for those going through similar pain?
You have to have buckets of grace. Buckets of grace on yourself and on your family too, because they don't know how to help you. They want to, but they don't know how.
And that includes friends and relatives understanding if someone wants to avoid holiday get-togethers.
They're surrounded by people who want them to be okay, which is an unintended pressure on them.
And remember, there is a place for help.
When you see the mom of a dead kid, people often try to run away. But at Lost and Found, they run to you.
In other news, Dole Fresh Vegetables is recalling salads processed at 2 of its facilities due to possible listeria contamination. They are Dole and private label salads with best by dates between November 30th, 2021 and January 8th of 2022. Salads have product lot codes beginning with N or Y. The Dole plants involved are in Bessemer City, North Carolina and Yuma, Arizona. A full list of products involved in the recall is on the FDA's website. Researchers in Wisconsin are studying nurse sharks as a potential way to fight COVID-19. Caroline Reinwald has the story.
Deep in a laboratory at the University of Wisconsin School of Medicine.
So you guys want to eat?
Is a shark tank.
They'll just come right up here.
While they may have menacing names, it's all based off James Bond villains.
Goldfinger, we have Sir Hugo Drax, we have Mr. Stamper, and we have Knick Knack.
These nurse sharks are actually quite tame. Researchers such as Aaron LeBeau are studying them, hoping to find another way to fight COVID.
We discovered a shark antibody that is pretty much immune to all the variants that are currently out there.
LeBeau says shark antibodies are 10 times smaller than human antibodies and extremely potent. Plus, nurse sharks have 4 types of antibodies, potentially perfect to use in attacking COVID spike proteins in future strains that could be resistant to vaccines.
So in theory, you can administer a shark antibody to a human, and the human's immune system will recognize it as itself.
These 4 sharks will stay in here for years being closely monitored in what LeBeau says is the only shark antibody research lab in the world. Eating whole foods, shrimp and octopus, and getting their blood drawn once every 7 weeks.
Sharks have been around for 500 million years. They've survived 5 mass extinction events, so they're obviously doing something right.
I can honestly say I've swam with a nurse shark before. That's another story for another day. That's a look at some of today's top health stories. You're watching the KOAM Morning News.
This season, sir.
Coming up, Fort Scott police investigate a person of interest in a double homicide.
We've got a windy one on our hands, but at least it's moving in from the south, bringing us warm temperatures headed into the Christmas weekend.
Also, healthcare providers in Oklahoma and Kansas see a massive increase in women from Texas seeking abortion services.
The 4 states' most watched news starts now.
Good morning and welcome to the KOAM Morning News. It's 5:30. I'm Tanya Bach. We'll get to those stories in a minute, but first let's go to Michael Hayslip, tracking the weather.
Already a tad bit breezy out there, but direction, that's the important thing. If it's going to come in from the south, going to provide us with abnormally warm temperatures, which has pretty much been our theme for the first 22 full days of the month of December. 46 degrees is where we stand over 7th and Range Line. Coming in from the south at 13 miles per hour, but providing us with temperatures far, far away from the freezing mark for the first time during this work week. There's a look at the current numbers. Says we'll actually increase those. Those are not wind gusts, that's sustained. We'll gust up to 30 miles per hour here a little bit later on this afternoon. Starting to see a little bit of clearing from our clouds. The clouds also help trap the heat. And if you're looking at the national perspective, if you've got any plans and you're headed to an airport, the only thing you really need to keep your eyes on is if you're going to the far left-hand side. West Coast does have an atmospheric river that's pouring rain and will do so all the way through the holiday. Here in the 4 states, partly sunny. After we get rid of our morning cloud cover, it's 60s. I mean, this is just absolutely great. And as we kind of build back our cloud cover into Friday, you see a little bit of green pop up, not going to be able to really hit the ground, and we're still going to keep 72 on the board for Christmas Eve day. Follow that up with a 64 there on Christmas Day.
Definitely going to be a nice...
overnight lows got me choked up. Do you realize some of those overnight lows are higher than what we'd anticipate for a December daily high?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
Love it.
Pulling out the big old fuzzy sweater for Christmas Eve is probably not going to be a viable option unless you want to sweat.
Yeah. We're not going to see too many fireplaces burning.
Right? All right. Thanks, Michael. Authorities have found a person of interest in a double murder case in Fort Scott. On Tuesday, the Fort Scott Police Department responded to a 911 call from a resident who found their family members' bodies. KOAM's Bronte Sorotsky has details on that murder and on the status of the person of interest in the case.
It's pretty quiet. We hear occasional hot rod running by, but really not much. Anytime there's any activity downtown, we're close, so that kind of we catch that. But yeah, it's pretty quiet.
The community of Fort Scott was put on high alert Wednesday when news of a double homicide broke. Michael Cheney lives nearby the house where the murders occurred and says he didn't know what was going on at first.
My first notice was a police siren that I heard, and it just went for a second until he stopped up there. It wasn't too long until my niece, I have a niece that lives with us, so her friends had heard it. So it was the grapevine is how we heard it. And so they contacted her and she contacted us, and then another friend sent me a text.
On Tuesday, the Fort Scott Police Department received a 911 call from a resident at 402 Main Street who came home to find their family member had been shot. When police arrived, they discovered 48-year-old Melissa L. Mitchell, who had died from a gunshot wound, as well as 53-year-old Leonard D. Zimmerman dead in the home. The victim's son, 23-year-old Dawson J. Mitchell, is a person of interest wanted for questioning.
Yeah, the police, of course, around the house confirmed something was going on with the crime tape and all that.
Mitchell was arrested around 1 p.m. Wednesday for theft of a firearm, possession of a firearm by a convicted felon, and unlawful possession of controlled substances. In Fort Scott, Bronte Sorotsky, KOAM News.
At last report, the 23-year-old had not been charged relating to the murders. Restrictive abortion laws in Texas that went into effect in September mean right now women are crossing the border to Oklahoma and Kansas for abortion services. The Trust Women Clinic says they saw fewer than 10 Texas patients in its Oklahoma and Kansas facilities before the Texas law went into effect. Now they're seeing more than 100 women a month, and they say they're struggling to keep up with the rush. Oklahoma has 3 abortion laws on a temporary injunction right now. They were supposed to go into effect November 1st. New cases and hospitalizations from COVID-19 are surging throughout Missouri. Health leaders are warning of an approaching perfect storm if more people do not get vaccinated and take other precautions. Missouri is now seeing a 7-day average of daily new cases of more than 3,000. The average dipped below 1,000 in October. Meanwhile, hospitals are becoming overwhelmed in both the St. Louis and Kansas City areas, even before Christmas gatherings and before the fast-moving Omicron variant fully takes hold. Oklahoma health officials say they've detected the state's first confirmed case of the Omicron COVID-19 variant. The Oklahoma State Department of Health did not release any information about where the case originated or whether the person was vaccinated. Fast-spreading Omicron coronavirus variant is causing a surge in the purchase of at-home COVID tests, so much that the 2 of the largest pharmaceutical chain stores in the U.S., CVS Health and Walgreens, are limiting the number of tests a person can buy. In a statement, CVS said, quote, "To ensure equitable access to tests in both in-store and digitally, we've added a limit of 6 test kits per purchase. That's 2 more than Walgreens is allowing. But Americans may soon be able to get free tests in the mail. On Tuesday, the Biden administration announced the purchase of a $500 million at-home rapid test to send to people.
Already sitting in the mid-40s, not too bad at all. No worries about if you misplace the frost scraper, you don't need it. You won't need it. You may not need it for the rest of 2021. to be honest with you. Partly sunny skies today, highs around 62, 63. We do not have any wind advisories in effect, but do want you to be aware that it is going to be a tad bit blustery as it comes in from the south, gusting up to 30 miles per hour.
That's a look at our top news stories coming up this half hour in the KOAM Morning News. We meet a Tennessee tree lot owner who gives away dozens of Christmas trees to those who cannot afford them. Plus, another casualty of supply chain issues as McDonald's Japan limits its sale of French fries. We'll have the latest there. You're watching the KOAM Morning News. More real news in the morning. We'll be right back.
There's a whole lot of Christmas.
Topping World Watch, COVID-19 cases are surging across the UK. On Wednesday, the country reported more than 100,000 new infections. That brings the total number of cases there to 11.6 million since the pandemic began. Yet the UK is not imposing any new restrictions right now. Salma Abulaleza has more on the story.
For the first time since the start of this pandemic, the UK has recorded more than 100,000 new positive cases in a single 24-hour period on Wednesday. Yet another record broken largely due to the Omicron variant, which has caused a huge surge in cases across the UK. Still, the Prime Minister is insistent that no new restrictions will go into force before Christmas. So other steps are being taken to prepare the country for a potential surge in hospitalizations. On Wednesday, health officials announcing that the isolation period for those who test positive for COVID-19 will now be reduced from 10 days to 7 days if an individual tests negative with a lateral flow test on day 6 and day 7. Health officials hope that this will reduce the impact COVID-19 has on lives and livelihoods, and most critically, keep critical public services staffed, like hospitals. Also today, the government announcing 2 major contracts that will bring 4.25 million antiviral courses to this country at the start of the new year. Also, a UK regulatory body approving vaccinations for children between the age of 5 to 11, and the country's booster program still going full steam ahead. More than 50% of eligible adults have their third shot. The authorities want to continue to see that number rise. Still, the question is it enough? We simply don't know the severity of Omicron or how these tens of thousands of positive cases a day, what proportion of them will wind up in hospital. All eyes on the UK as the healthcare system braces for a potential surge.
The first 7 cases of the COVID-19 Omicron variant have been detected in Venezuela. President Nicolas Maduro announced this on Wednesday. Maduro said cases were detected in people arriving from other countries such as Panama, Turkey, the Dominican Republic, and Spain. According to government data, 442,178 cases of COVID-19 have been confirmed in the country since the beginning of the pandemic. Authorities in Chile are investigating an oil spill in Valparaiso. In a statement, Chile's army said an oily stain appeared on the surface of the sea, and the authorities activated an emergency plan to contain the spill. The army also indicated the port facilities have stopped while they are working to control the emergency. At the moment, it is unknown how much fuel would have been dumped into Quintero Bay. Well, you can now add potatoes to the list of items in short supply this holiday season. But some good news, it's not in the U.S. That's in a potato pickle. That country would be Japan. McDonald's Japan is limiting the sale of their staple item, French fries. The company is saying the potato shortage is a result of the flooding in Canada as well as a global supply chain issue. From December 24th through the 30th, customers can only order a small fry. Medium and large will not be available. McDonald's Japan also notes that it's looking into alternative measures like airmail to get their French fries back in full supply at their stores. You can do air fry, so why not airmail? That's a look at some of your biggest headlines from around the world. Let's toss it over to Michael for our Something to Talk About.
Why we gotta blame Canada?
Because it's an easy out.
Just seems like a common theme. It's like, well, let's just blame Canada. I just thought that was, I didn't know that the majority of their
I didn't know they made that many potatoes up in Canada, but yeah.
The Great Maple Syrup Heist. Let's talk about it sometime.
Oh no, they are protecting their syrup up there.
On the KOAM News Now Facebook page. And morning Insta poll discussing pets and their homes. About 150 dogs raised in an Iowa puppy mill are getting a helping hand, and this is all happening in Kansas City. There's a rescue operation called Wayside Waifs that took the dogs in, helping the dogs that were raised in small crates adjust to a big world that they're not quite used to. And it's training time, and simple things like taking food from humans can be a struggle because, quite frankly, they don't know people. But the team at Wayside Waifs believes that these dogs need a helping hand and will be ready for adoption. And if you'd like to help Wayside Waifs, evidently they even have an Amazon wish list of things that they need for the Christmas season. Our question to you this morning is, how did you come about your pet? 51% of you say you adopted them. And we've given you about 3 other options on there to go along with the vaunted other. But right now, majority of you saying, yep, went to the old shelter and adopted them. And thanks to people like Jasmine Kyle of the SEK Humane Society, who joins us in the studio for getting those animals forever homes. Once again, 3 ways to connect now to the KOAM Insta Poll. We've got our Facebook page. You can go directly to the poll, KOAMnewsnow.com/vote, or if you've got your phone, snap a picture of that right there. That's our Insta Poll QR code, and it will deliver you each and every morning to our poll. And you know what, we'll keep on running this for the rest of the week and into next week as well. That way you know it's going to pop up at some point in time, and we're not scrambling to take a quick picture of it. We'll be back with the news you need to know before you head out the door right after this.
Here's a check of today's top headlines, the news you need to know before you head out the door. Kansas Governor Laura Kelly is proposing to give residents who pay income taxes a one-time rebate of $250. Governor Kelly outlined the proposal on Wednesday. The Republican-controlled legislature would have to approve the plan, and GOP lawmakers are expected to have proposals for ongoing income tax cuts instead of one-time rebates. Lawmakers' next annual session convenes January 10th. Governor Kelly said such rebates would be possible because Kansas has been collecting more in tax revenues than expected for months. Her proposal would provide $250 to individuals and $500 to married couples filing jointly. About 1.2 million filers would receive a total of $445 million. The Kansas Forest Service has revised down the number of acres burned in last week's wildfires. The agency posted on Facebook that around 163,000 acres burned on December 15th, not the 400,000 that was first estimated. The Forest Service and the National Interagency Fire Coordination Center are using a new satellite data system to map ongoing wildfires. The service says that as heat, dust, and smoke cleared, the satellite was able to get a clearer picture. Fires claimed 2 lives. Restrictive abortion laws in Texas that went into effect in September mean right now women are crossing the border to Oklahoma and Kansas for abortion services. Trust Women Clinic says they saw fewer than 10 Texas patients in its Oklahoma and Kansas facilities before the Texas law went into effect. And now they're seeing more than 100 women a month, and they say they're struggling to keep up with the rush. Oklahoma has 3 abortion laws on a temporary injunction right now. They were supposed to go into effect November 1st. And new cases and hospitalizations from COVID-19 are surging throughout Missouri, and health leaders are warning of an approaching perfect storm if more people do not get vaccinated and take other precautions. Missouri is now seeing a 7-day average of daily new cases of more than 3,000. The average dipped below 1,000 in October. Meanwhile, hospitals are becoming overwhelmed in both the St. Louis and Kansas City areas, even before Christmas gatherings and before the fast-moving Omicron variant fully takes hold. That's a check of today's top headlines, the news you need to know before you head out the door.
Cloud cover dividing us from the northwest down to the southeast. We'll eventually end up with partly sunny skies and no worries about being close to that freezing mark, at least for this morning. As a matter of fact, when we get to the 7-day forecast, you're going to notice temperatures in the 60s today and overnight lows. We're going to be talking about overnight lows warmer than our expected daily highs. We'll be back right after this.
The owner of a nursery outside Nashville has been giving free Christmas trees to those who cannot afford them. That's even though running his business has been more expensive this year. Claire Kopsky went to meet him and learned his giving nature extends beyond the season.
Larry Jenkins opened his Christmas tree lot 9 years ago.
Started off selling Christmas trees, and Christmas tree turned into a full-time nursery.
But this year, he says bringing in the Christmas trees meant several road trips to North Carolina and calls to 13 different states just to find some.
Most time I would bring all my tree here on an 18-wheeler. This year I had to go get the trees. I had to stay at the hotel the night before and stay all night, so I had to take an extra guy with me, rent a big U-Haul, bring the truck here, so it's been a lot more expensive.
Despite all the hoops, once the lot opened, he decided to open his heart too.
So I know how COVID's been and people out of work and family having a rough time. I decided, why not give trees to some of the people that couldn't afford it.
There's no explanation needed at Larry's lot, just a longing for a Christmas tree.
You see some people shed tears because they're just not used to nobody giving them nothing like that, and they really appreciate it.
Although this is the first year he's publicized it, Larry's been helping bring the joy of Christmas to homes for years.
I've seen people come here who have 3 kids and couldn't afford a Christmas tree, and I still gave them one. And she didn't have a job, and she came back 3 or 4 years, said, "You remember me?" So I was that person you gave a Christmas tree. I'm here to buy one this year. So, I believe give, it'll come back to you,
Paying it forward because he says it's just the right thing to do.
This is something we should be doing year-round, not just Christmas, wait for a season. We should help one another all through the whole year, not just wait for a certain day.
We'll take another look at your forecast when we return.
Those numbers you see right there, anywhere from, say 10 to 18 degrees warmer than what we started out on Wednesday. Gonna make it up into the 60s today, thanks in part to that strong wind. More KOAM morning news right after this.
Coming up, Fort Scott police investigate a person of interest in a double homicide.
Windy, but that also means it's warm. We'll talk about some records as we set into the Christmas weekend.
Also, healthcare providers in Oklahoma and Kansas see a massive increase in women from Texas seeking abortion services.
The 4 states' most watched news starts now.
Good morning and welcome to the KOAM Morning News. It is 6 a.m. I'm Tanya Bach. We'll get to those stories in just a moment. But first, let's go to Michael Hayslip where he is tracking the wind.
Tracking the wind because it is going to be blustery today, but at the same point in time, that's why we don't have to worry about temperatures even close to the freezing mark. We've even got some areas 20 degrees warmer than what we were at this point in time yesterday. Joplin sits at a very comfortable 48 degrees. 48, okay, we're an hour and a half before sunrise. 48 degrees would be better than an average high, an average afternoon high for this time of year. Now look at that second column there. You'll see it's moving in from the south at 16 miles per hour. Does at least put us close to the 50-degree mark in Neosho, already 49 up there. Still 39 in Parsons and Oswego. Let's roll 45 in Miami and 41 right now in Fort Scott. A little cloud cover, kind of splitting us diagonally from the northwest down to the southeast. We'll go partly sunny skies today. Only thing we're worried about travel-wise, if you're going to be in the car, there's certainly no worries. But if you've got a trip to the West Coast or you've got family and friends coming in from the far west, they're going to experience some delays right there. Atmospheric river just going to rain on them into the Christmas weekend. Also, too, going to mean a white Christmas for some places in those elevated areas for them. It's just not going to stop. Our weather trend, delightful. Like I said, if you're going to be in a car, there's absolutely no worries. And then as we push into Friday, that green not even going to be able to hit the ground for the most part, and we'll begin to clear off. Do want to point out, though, that usually after sunset, our wind begins to die down. That's not going to be the case today. As a matter of fact, look at this thing. It even pumps up there early Friday morning, so we need to be apprised of that situation, especially if you're traveling east, west, and high-profile vehicles. But still, 72 on Christmas Eve day and 64 for Christmas.
Yeah. No complaints here. It's going to be a nice Christmas, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's just been pristine.
Yeah. All right. Well, authorities have found a person of interest in a double murder case in Fort Scott on Tuesday. The Fort Scott Police Department responded to a 911 call from a resident who found their family members' bodies. KOAM's Bronte Sorosky has details on that murder and on the status of the person of interest in the case.
It's pretty quiet. We hear occasional hot rod running by, but really not much. Anytime there's any activity downtown, we're close, so that kind of we catch that. But yeah, it's pretty quiet.
The community of Fort Scott was put on high alert Wednesday when news of a double homicide broke. Michael Cheney lives nearby the house where the murders occurred and says he didn't know what was going on at first.
My first notice was a police siren that I heard, and it just went for a second until he stopped up there. It wasn't too long until my niece, I have a niece that lives with us, so her friends had heard it. So it was the grapevine is how we heard it. And so they contacted her and she contacted us, and then another friend sent me a text.
On Tuesday, the Fort Scott Police Department received a 911 call from a resident at 402 Main Street who came home to find their family member had been shot. When police arrived, they discovered 48-year-old Melissa L. Mitchell, who had died from a gunshot wound, as well as 53-year-old Leonard D. Zimmerman, dead in the home. The victim's son, 23-year-old Dawson J. Mitchell, is a person of interest, wanted for questioning.
Yeah, the police, of course, around the house confirmed something was going on with the crime tape and all that.
Mitchell was arrested around 1 p.m. Wednesday for theft of a firearm, possession of a firearm by a convicted felon, and unlawful possession of controlled substances. In Fort Scott, Bronte Sorotsky, KOAM News.
At last report, the 23-year-old had not been charged relating to the murders. Kansas Governor Laura Kelly is proposing to give residents who pay income taxes a one-time rebate of $250. Kelly outlined the proposal on Wednesday. Republican-controlled legislature would have to approve the plan, and GOP lawmakers are expected to have proposals for ongoing income tax cuts instead of one-time rebates. Lawmakers' next annual session convenes January 10th. Governor Kelly said such rebates would be possible because Kansas has been collecting more in tax revenues than expected for months. Her proposal would provide $250 to individuals and $500 to married couples filing jointly. About 1.2 million filers would receive a total of $445 million. The Kansas Forest Service revises down the number of acres burned in last week's wildfires. The agency posted on Facebook that around 163,000 acres burned December 15th, not the 400,000 that was first estimated. The Forest Service and the National Interagency Fire Coordination Center are using a new satellite data system to map ongoing wildfires. Service says that as heat, dust, and smoke clears, satellite was able to get a clearer picture. The fires claimed 2 lives. Restrictive abortion laws in Texas went into effect in September, mean right now women are crossing the border to Oklahoma and Kansas for abortion services. The Trust Women Clinic says they saw fewer than 10 Texas patients in its Oklahoma and Kansas facilities before the Texas law went into effect. And now they're seeing more than 100 women a month. They say they're struggling to keep up with the rush. Oklahoma has 3 abortion laws on a temporary injunction right now, and they were supposed to go into effect November 1st. New cases and hospitalizations from COVID-19 are surging throughout Missouri, and health leaders are warning of an approaching perfect storm if more people do not get vaccinated and take other precautions. Missouri is now seeing a 7-day average of daily new cases of more than 3,000. The average dipped below 1,000 in October. Meanwhile, hospitals are becoming overwhelmed in both the St. Louis and Kansas City areas, even before Christmas gatherings and before the fast-moving Omicron variant fully takes hold. Oklahoma health officials say they've detected the state's first confirmed case of the Omicron COVID-19 variant. Oklahoma State Department of Health did not release any information about where the case originated or whether the person was vaccinated. Fast-spreading Omicron coronavirus variant is causing a surge in the purchase of at-home COVID tests. So much that 2 of the largest pharmaceutical chain stores in the U.S., CVS Health and Walgreens, are limiting the number of tests a person can buy. In a statement, CVS said, quote, "To ensure equitable access to tests both in-store and digitally, we've added a limit of 6 test kits per purchase." That's 2 more than Walgreens is allowing. But Americans may soon be able to get free tests in the mail. On Tuesday, the Biden administration announced the purchase of a $500 million at-home rapid tests to send to people. Well, Christmas is right around the corner, and we have today's pictures with Santa. Starting off, here we've got Olivia and Waylon. They're ages 7 and 2, coming to us from Frontenac.
Next up, how about Riker? Riker is 7 months old, and he is from Oronogo. Adeline Pemberton, she is 3 years old, And Adeline took the trip to visit the big man from Rebate.
Finally, Charlie Danley, ages 3, from Pittsburgh. Delaney Edwards, age 1 month. So we've got the two of them there with Santa. Looks like one of them blends in quite well with Santa there. Love it. They're both from Pittsburgh.
And thank you to our good friends at the Christmas shop for setting up the big man so we can get these marvelous pictures of the kiddos. Here's what it feels like when you step outside. Not a big difference between the temperatures and the wind chill, but because it is whipping in at a pretty good clip, anywhere from 10 to 15 miles per hour right now, it does take a couple degrees off, but I want to stress again, that is wind chill numbers. Our actual temperatures are well above the freezing point. This afternoon, we're going to make it up into the low to mid 60s. Partly sunny skies. Cloud cover is going to linger a little bit. And then as we work in overnight, the interesting thing about this is you might as well just call it warm if we're going to be in the 50s. But the wind doesn't die down. It just persists all the way into Friday. And that's why we're able to warm up into the 70s for Christmas Eve day.
Not bad. That's a look at this morning's top stories and weather in our first 7 minutes. Coming up on the KOAM Morning News, the time capsule found under the Robert E. Lee statue is open. Stick with us to find out its contents. Plus, it's the most wonderful time of the year, but it leads to a lot of stress. We're going to find out why. And President Biden is back trying to unclog ports. But how is he doing it? We're watching the KOAM Morning News. More real news in the morning. We'll be right back.
Experience what Kia.
In Consumer Watch this morning, President Biden convened his supply chain task force yesterday to discuss progress being made in working through the number of cargo containers stuck in our nation's ports. Natalie Brandt has more details from.
Longshoremen at the Port of Savannah are working 24 hours a day to clear the backlog of shipping containers.
We're still catching up as a nation to what happened a year and a half ago when Asia shut down.
The ongoing supply chain bottlenecks mean some store owners can't get what they need during the busiest time of the year.
We're seeing things delayed up to 3 months and more. Shipping prices are sky high right now.
Days before Christmas, President Biden is getting an update from his supply chain task force, industry experts, and CEOs.
At the Port of Long Beach since mid-October, the dwell times for those containers has dropped from 12 days to 5 days. That's 140% improvement. And in Los Angeles, from 9 days to 4 days, 125% improvement.
This week, the Biden administration is announcing $230 million in grant money to help ports upgrade their infrastructure.
We're also working to unstick bottlenecks between the ports and the stores by getting more trucks moving all around the country.
Savannah's port used federal dollars to help create pop-up ports further inland to clear containers off the docks.
At the end of the day, we're all dealing with a parking lot. And when the parking lot is full, it's full. So the race for us is to keep the parking lot as empty as possible and keep the cars moving out.
It's a model other ports could look at replicating to deal with what's been a record volume of import cargo. Natalie Brandt, CBS News, the White House.
Despite whatever progress the ports have made in clearing out the docks, a report from the digital freight forwarding company Schiffel says the backlog on the West Coast is still so severe that it's actually faster for companies to ship their cargo from Asia to ports in New York and New Jersey rather than in Long Beach and LA. Wow. Well, stocks moved higher on Wednesday. The Dow gained 261 points. The Nasdaq added 180. S&P 500 rose 47. Home sales rose for the third straight month. And the National Association of Realtors says sales of previously owned homes rose 1.9% in November. 2021 is on pace to be the strongest year for sales since 2006, largely driven by low interest rates and a strong job market. The Biden administration is extending its pause on student loan payments. 40 million borrowers now do not have to worry about their federal loans until May 1st. Some Democratic lawmakers want the president to go further and forgive $10,000 or more in student loan debt, a promise President Biden made on the campaign trail. Are Tesla drivers playing video games while the car does the driving? The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration is investigating the feature called Passenger Play. The agency has received at least one complaint from a Tesla owner about the possible distraction. Calling all procrastinators. There are just 2 days left until Christmas, and plenty of shoppers are hitting the stores amid the increasing COVID risk to get those last-minute gifts. As Janet Shamlian reports, they also risk coming home empty-handed.
Many last-minute shoppers are now hearing these words, out of stock.
There's a lot of us explaining to people that, we don't have a lot of what they're, might be looking for.
This is Houston's Fundamentally Toys, where supply chain issues mean many of manager Cliff Moss's orders never arrived.
There's a lot of things that we're expecting, that were expected 2 months ago. We get emails daily about, sorry, it's still on the water.
Despite the backlog, the National Retail Federation expects record growth, predicting an 11% increase in holiday sales this year, all in the face of the Omicron variant.
Does the National Retail Federation not believe that the new variant will have an impact on these last few days?
There's a lot of uncertainty surrounding the new variant. It's impacting different parts of the country in different ways.
With many online retailers now unable to deliver in time for Christmas,
Happy holidays. Thank you.
shoppers are looking to physical stores, even as Omicron surges.
The acronym that you want to remember is BOPIS: Buy Online, Pick Up in Store. It's a great strategy.
For those hoping to get it all done before Christmas, long lines and a fingers crossed attitude.
Right now I'm at USPS, and they really helped me get my last minute shopping sent out. I'm praying, keeping my hopes up, keeping the holiday spirit alive.
Shoppers told us they were mindful of the increasing Omicron risk as they finished holiday errands. Janet Shamlian, CBS News, Houston.
Retail experts say shoppers should keep their options open and expect to pay a little more. You can also find gifts like subscription services, event tickets, phone apps, or electronic gift cards. That's it for Consumer Watch. We'll be right back.
With only 2 shopping days left, I got a sneaking suspicion that by the time we do the KOAM news at noon, Old 7th and Range Line probably going to be quite packed. Off to a slow start here as we find ourselves about 20 minutes past the 6 o'clock hour, very comfortable 48 degrees. We're going to concentrate quite a bit on the wind, and as a matter of fact, you can tell it puts a little bit of a wind chill out there. Feels like it's 42 right now in Joplin. These are the actual temperatures, first time this work week that we've had an early pre-sunrise morn where we didn't have to worry about freezing temps, didn't have to worry about scraping any of the windshields off. We're as high as 48 in Joplin and 47 right now in Carthage and Neosho. Have seen 39 there in Parsons, 36 in Oswego, but still have 4 degrees above 32. It makes a huge difference. And a large part of our warm-up has been the south wind, that these are moving in now double digits, and we're actually just going to see those numbers increase as we get later on in the day. But the 24-hour temperature change, anywhere from, say about 9 to 18 degrees better than what we had at this point in time on Wednesday. Skywatch Storm Tracker cloud cover kind of dividing us in half from the northwest down to the southeast, staying on the dry side. Very dry, as a matter of fact, throughout the entire Midwest. The atmospheric river pulling in the Pacific moisture. A little bit of mess on their hands out on the left coast as they've got rain and snow for the higher elevations. And they're going to have flooding concerns as they head into the Christmas weekend. You got anything going on the other side of the Mississippi, whether you be driving or flying, really not a care in the world. They will see some snow in the Great Lakes. That's perfectly normal for them this time of year. Our high temperature, not normal for this time of year, way above average. Be up into the mid-60s here later on today, and going to call Thursday night into Friday morning, quite frankly, warm. And the reason is the wind. Even after sunset, usually that's when things begin to die down a little bit. That's not going to be the case. Watch these winds actually increase into Friday morning. So be apprised of that if you're getting ready to take off tomorrow, especially if you're traveling east and west. 7-day forecast still going to try to challenge that record on December Eve afternoon. If we get up to 73 degrees at Joplin Regional Airport, we will tie the record dating back to 1955. A time capsule more than a century old, found inside a controversial statue in the South. Courtney Keeley has more on what was found inside after crews spent several hours prying it open and why treasure hunters were left a tad bit disappointed.
A surprise discovery. A time capsule found last week buried more than 130 years beneath the statue of Confederate General Robert E. Lee was opened in Richmond, Virginia.
It wasn't that it wasn't meant to be found. It wasn't meant to be found easily.
Crews uncovered it while working to remove the pedestal where the Lee statue, long seen as a symbol of racial injustice, had stood until its removal in September. It was taken down following protests over racism and police brutality. Inside the capsule were 3 books, including an almanac from 1875, a cloth envelope, a pamphlet, and a silver coin.
I think it's part of the mystery of maybe the lost cause. What were they thinking back then?
Records from the Library of Virginia indicated around 60 items would be found inside, and a newspaper article from that time period suggested the capsule contained Civil War artifacts and a picture of Lincoln lying in his coffin. Instead, just those 6 items and the 3 books appeared to have suffered severe water damage.
There were no open-by dates prior to the 1920s, 1930s. They put these time capsules in with the expectation that they would last in perpetuity. So it's like, well, why would they do that?
Virginia Governor Ralph Northam says it's an important day for the history of Richmond and Virginia, and that the books will shed light on what people were thinking in the late 19th century. Courtney Keeley, CBS News.
It's believed that those specific items placed inside the box are actually from residents of Richmond, Virginia during the time that the statue was erected. Governor's office announced plans to replace the time capsule, called on residents to submit objects that, quote, honor the Virginia of today. We'll be back with Healthwatch next.
Topping Healthwatch this morning, we know that the most wonderful time of the year can also lead to a lot of stress. A new survey finds unrealistic expectations for the holidays are stressing out both parents and kids. But as CBS's Bradley Blackburn reports, you may get more from the holidays by doing less.
Mom Stephanie Mortimer knows the holiday season can be hectic. She's squeezing in some shopping with her son Eli and their friends.
We have to decorate the house, we have to get all the gifts, we have to make sure the kids have a memorable holiday.
In December, it can feel like the to-do list is longer than Santa's list.
Do you ever feel a pressure to get it a certain way?
For sure, yeah. And then you're not sure if everybody always notices, right?
A new C.S. Mott Children's Hospital national poll finds parents are worried their holiday stress may be taking away from holiday joy.
A lot of them feel like that has a negative impact on their child's enjoyment of the holidays, and that's just so unfortunate.
The poll shows nearly a third of parents are stressed during the holidays by extra shopping, balancing finances, and especially keeping their family healthy. Moms are twice as likely as dads to experience high stress, and 1 in 5 parents believes their stress negatively affects their kids during the holiday season. Sarah Clark is the poll co-director.
I think in some families, we're trying to make up for some things missed over the last year or year and a half. And I don't really think that's the approach that is going to be most helpful.
Experts say to make the season brighter, sit down with your family and ask everyone what they really want from Christmas. Keep your favorite traditions alive, but think about which activities you can cut or minimize.
The presents and the holiday spirit and the meals, I guess.
What about the elf on the shelf?
Oh, yeah.
So check the to-do list twice and try to trim some of the stress for more joy this season. Bradley Blackburn, CBS News, New York.
70% of parents say the best way to reduce holiday stress is to get some alone time, and more than half said listening to music helps. COVID patients who also suffer from high blood pressure, obesity, or diabetes are much more likely to die from the virus. An international study by the Mayo Clinic examined records from 46,000 patients in 26 countries. Found patients with symptoms associated with metabolic syndrome, even mild obesity, were 30% more likely to be hospitalized for COVID-19 and 20% more likely to die. More than a third of all Americans have high blood pressure, obesity, or diabetes connected with metabolic syndrome. How prepared healthcare workers are to treat COVID varies greatly depending on training and financial factors. PLOS One studied workers in 57 countries and found doctors and nurses in countries with less wealth were less prepared to fight COVID. Women also ranked lower on preparedness tests. Experts say more work needs to be done to make sure healthcare worker training is equitable across genders and backgrounds. People who work with formaldehyde are at risk for cognitive impairment later in life. That's the finding of new research published by the American Academy of Neurology. Nurses, carpenters, cleaners, and many factory workers use formaldehyde in their jobs. Exposure was found to raise the risk of critical thinking and memory problems by 17%. Formaldehyde has already been linked to certain cancers. That's a look at some of today's top health stories. You're watching the KOAM Morning News.
A little breaking news, Tanya, on the COVID front. House Majority Whip James Clyburn, he's a representative from the state of South Carolina, coming out this morning saying he has just tested positive with a breakthrough case. 7-day forecast puts us up into the mid-60s today. It's a windy one, even warmer as we head into the Christmas holiday weekend. We'll be back with more KOAM Morning News when we return.
Coming up, Fort Scott police investigate a person of interest in a double homicide.
All the serious action stays out to the west. We're going to be talking about possible record-breaking temperatures for our Christmas weekend.
Also, healthcare providers in Oklahoma and Kansas see a massive increase in women from Texas seeking abortion services.
The 4 states' most watched news starts now.
Good morning and welcome to the KOAM Morning News. It is 6:30. I'm Tanya Bach. We'll get to those stories in just a moment. But first, it's a little bit windy out there. Let's go to Michael.
We've been able to avoid any high wind advisories, no red flag warnings, even though our humidity is going to drop. But yeah, you're going to notice it when you walk outside. Number one, it's blustery. But number two, Tanya, it is taking about 4 to 5 degrees off of our temperature and putting a little bit of a wind chill in the air. Now, with that being said, when we talk about a wind chill, hey, we're way above the freezing mark right now. So we really don't have anything to worry about. There are your sustained winds coming in from the south, anywhere from 10 to 15 miles per hour currently. We'll go 15 to 20 for the afternoon. And these are actual temperatures, not wind chills, actual temperatures. Joplin and Carthage already pushing up close to the 50-degree mark, and we've still got about an hour until official sunrise. We're as low as 36 right now in Oswego, 43 in Miami, and 41 in Nevada. A weather trend that's going to lift us up into the mid-60s, partly sunny skies. Cloud cover is going to stick around for most of the morning, and then we kind of split in the afternoon. We gather back up the clouds for tonight, and what that will do is trap in that warmth. An overnight low only around 54 degrees, and that's why we get such a head start on tomorrow. If we make it up to 73 at Joplin Regional Airport, we tie that Christmas Eve record back in 1955 is when that thing was set.
Nice. Well, maybe we'll see if we can.
I think we're going to throw a couple up there. Yeah.
You think so?
Yeah, I do. And it's simply a case that we're going to be so warm to start the day.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And it's not going to expected to get that warm that night. So.
Yeah, we're going to have such a jump start tomorrow morning. I think we're going to cruise up there.
Sounds good. All right. Thanks, Michael. Well, authorities have found a person of interest in a double murder case in Fort Scott. On Tuesday, the Fort Scott Police Department responded to a 911 call from a resident who found their family members' bodies. KOAM's Bronte Sorosky has details on that murder and on the status of the person of interest in the case.
It's pretty quiet. We hear occasional hot rod running by, but really not much. Anytime there's any activity downtown, we're close, so that kind of we catch that. But yeah, it's pretty quiet.
The community of Fort Scott was put on high alert Wednesday when news of a double homicide broke. Michael Cheney lives nearby the house where the murders occurred and says he didn't know what was going on at first.
My first notice was a police siren that I heard, and it just went for a second until he stopped up there. It wasn't too long until my niece, I have a niece that lives with us, so her friends had heard it. So it was the grapevine is how we heard it. And so they contacted her and she contacted us, and then another friend sent me a text.
On Tuesday, the Fort Scott Police Department received a 911 call from a resident at 402 Main Street who came home to find their family member had been shot. When police arrived, they discovered 48-year-old Melissa L. Mitchell, who had died from a gunshot wound, as well as 53-year-old Leonard D. Zimmerman dead in the home. The victim's son, 23-year-old Dawson J. Mitchell, is a person of interest wanted for questioning.
Yeah, the police, of course, around the house confirmed something was going on with crime tape and all that.
Mitchell was arrested around 1 p.m. Wednesday for theft of a firearm, possession of a firearm by a convicted felon, and unlawful possession of controlled substances. In Fort Scott, Bronte Sorotsky, KOAM News.
At last report, the 23-year-old had not been charged relating to the murders. Restrictive abortion laws in Texas that went into effect in September mean right now women are crossing the border to Oklahoma and Kansas for abortion services. The Trust Women Clinic says they saw fewer than 10 Texas patients in its Oklahoma and Kansas facilities before the Texas law went into effect. Now they're seeing more than 100 women a month, and they say they're struggling to keep up with the rush. Oklahoma has 3 abortion laws on a temporary injunction right now. They were supposed to go into effect November 1st. New cases and hospitalizations from COVID-19 are surging throughout Missouri. Health leaders are warning of an approaching perfect storm if more people do not get vaccinated and take other precautions. Missouri is now seeing a 7-day average of daily new cases of more than 3,000. The average dipped below 1,000 in October. Meanwhile, hospitals are becoming overwhelmed in both the St. Louis and Kansas City areas, even before Christmas gatherings and before the fast-moving Omicron variant fully takes hold. Oklahoma health officials say they detected the state's first confirmed case of the Omicron COVID-19 variant. The Oklahoma State Department of Health did not release any information about where the case originated or whether the person was vaccinated. Fast-spreading Omicron coronavirus variant is causing a surge in the purchase of at-home COVID tests, so much that 2 of the largest pharmaceutical chain stores in the U.S., CVS Health and Walgreens, are limiting the number of tests a person can buy. In a statement, CVS said, quote, "To ensure equitable access to tests both in-store and digitally, we've added a limit of 6 test kits per purchase. That's 2 more than Walgreens is allowing. But Americans may soon be able to get free tests in the mail." On Tuesday, the Biden administration announced the purchase of a $500 million at-home rapid test to send to people. Let's go to Michael with a check of your forecast.
I think we may see a 50 here by the time we close out the show. We got Joplin and Carthage that are sitting at 48. Neosho's been up to 48 as well. So that is something else to think that we're on the 23rd day of December. We're not even at sunrise, and we're close to the 50-degree mark. Top out around 62, 63 this afternoon on average. And then overnight, yeah, it's going to be windy, but our lows only about 54 degrees.
Let's look at our top news stories. Coming up this half hour on the KOAM Morning News, a trucker is sentenced to more than 100 years in jail. I'll tell you why. Plus, pets make wonderful additions to households, whether you bought yours, adopted it, or got it through other means. We want to know, how did you get your pet or pets? We let you weigh in. We'll be right back. Topping Nation Watch this morning, court officials in Colorado are under growing pressure to reduce the sentence of a truck driver who killed 4 people in a fiery crash. He was sentenced to more than 100 years in prison last week for plowing his truck into a line of vehicles in Colorado last year. Mark Strassman looks at the minimum sentencing laws that have inspired a nationwide petition for leniency in this case.
I'm begging for forgiveness.
26-year-old Rohel Aguilera Medeiros sobbed in court when he was sentenced last week to 110 years in prison on 4 counts of vehicular homicide and 23 other charges.
I'm crying all the time when I'm thinking about it.
4 people were killed in this fiery wreck on Colorado's Interstate 70 in April of 2019. It's a steep road in the Rocky Mountain foothills. Aguilera Medeiros says his brakes failed, but video shows he may have missed a runaway truck ramp where prosecutors claim he could have pulled off.
He made a series of terrible decisions.
Aguilera Medeiros received all minimum sentences, but because Colorado's law requires them to be served consecutively, it added up to 110 years, something even the judge objected to.
If I had the discretion, it would not be my sentence.
As of this morning, more than 4.5 million people have signed a petition to reduce Aguilera Medeiros' sentence. Colorado Governor Jared Polis said his office has received a clemency request and he's reviewing the sentence. Gage Evans, whose husband died in the crash, says sentencing laws should be reviewed. But the sentence itself should not be commuted.
He was found guilty of reckless behavior that killed my husband. That was the most important thing to me.
Mark Strassman, CBS News.
That's a look at today's top national stories. Let's check back in with Michael for something to talk about.
Thank you, Tanya. This morning on the KOAM News Now Facebook page in our morning Insta poll, forever homes for 150 dogs. These dogs you see right here, they were actually raised at a puppy mill in Iowa. Well, now they're in Kansas City, thanks to a rescue operation called Wayside Waifs. Wayside Waifs help rescue them, and now these dogs that were raised in small crates got to figure out this big world that they're living in. And what looks like playtime is actually training. It's simple things, taking food from humans, that can be a struggle. You have to remember, they don't necessarily know people, but the team at Wayside Waifs believes that even these dogs need a helping hand and will someday be ready for adoption. Our question to you this morning is, if you have a pet, how did you come about him or her? 48% say you adopted them, 23% go with bought them, and 17% say it was given to you. I found this interesting. 7% say found them, gave them a good home. I appreciate everybody's engagement each and every morning. We now have 3 ways that you can connect to us. Number 1, of course, Facebook. Number 2, if you'd like to type it in and go directly to the poll, koamnewsnow.com/vote. Or if you've got your phone handy, snap a picture of that right there. It's the old QR code for the Insta poll, and that will also deliver you to the site, and you can engage with us every morning with our something to talk about and our question of the day. We're going to return with birthdays and anniversaries, but first, let's check in with Tony DeCouple, see what's coming up on CBS Mornings.
I'm Tony DeCouple. Coming up on CBS Mornings, our chief medical correspondent, Dr. John LaPook, answers your questions about the pandemic and the Omicron variant. That's coming up on CBS Mornings.
We take this time to honor today's 4-state hero, Sergeant Ronnie Bryant in the U.S. Army. The soldier from Fredonia, Kansas, joined the 63rd Signal Battalion in 1967. He served a tour in Vietnam, earning a number of medals. Among them, Vietnam Service Medal with 1 Bronze Star and an Overseas Bar and the Expert M16 Rifle Medal. To Sergeant Ronnie Bryant, we thank you, today's 4-state hero.
The birthday list begins with Tucker Ensminger. Great looking picture right there. Tucker turning 5, and he is in Moran.
And then we have Elsie Anderson, who's 7 strong this year. Giving some love to the horse in that picture. In Fort Scott. Happy birthday, Elsie.
Mount up, let's ride. Cadence Whitworth celebrating 12, and doing so with Santa. I'm not sure, Cadence must know people to have that picture pulled off right there. Cadence, a very happy 12th birthday, and I want you to know that this comes with love from Mimi. She is in Chanute.
And I'm sure by now she's moved from the naughty list to the nice list.
We're hoping, because Cadence, you are on the clock. We've got like 2 days left.
Love that smile. All right, Ashton Level turning 26 years old this year. Happy birthday to Ashton in Arma.
And in Oswego, Melinda Gatewood celebrating her 48th birthday. It's going to be a great weekend. Jump on in and go for a ride right there. Happy birthday, Melinda.
That looks like a fun ride, yeah. And with birthday wishes coming from Corbin, Emmy, Evelyn, and Dad in Pittsburgh, going out to Hillary Blackburn. Happy birthday, Hillary.
We've got a very special birthday right here. This is Miss Anna Rose, and Anna is celebrating her 100th birthday. She's at Medical Lodges in Fort Scott. And Miss Rose, number 1, a very happy birthday from all of us here at KOAM. And I want you to know that additional happy birthday wishes are upon you from your granddaughter, Tina. So let the party commence in Fort Scott for Anna Rose, please.
All right. And then we have Lori Kleins from Edna, Kansas. Happy birthday to Lori. And we've got an anniversary wish going out to Tom and Yvonne Gettle. Yvonne actually had a birthday last week, so her anniversary is this week. They've been married for 49 years now in Columbus.
Well, Tom's got a busy week right there. He's got a birthday, he's got an anniversary, he's got Christmas. And I hope Yvonne just has a chance to sit back and kick it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is her month.
Yeah. So Yvonne, hopefully hopefully you are relaxing on your birthday, anniversary, and Christmas weekend.
49 years, I hope they both are relaxing today.
Yeah. Oh no, Tom's still got to make this happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, he's still got it. That's it. How do you think they got to 49 years?
Very true.
There you go, right there. All right, here's where you can send them into KOAM birthdays at KOAMTV.com. You can also go to our website, KOAMNewsNow.com. And speaking of our website, here's Tanya Bach with a very important birthday announcement.
That's right. You can be a part of the KOAM Birthday Club by going to our website and signing up. And once you do, you'll get special deals from local businesses and even be registered for a prize. Go to KOAMNewsNow.com. Sign up for the KOAM Birthday Club today.
There's an airport in the southwestern portion of the United States that has a very cute way to help calm anxious travelers. Now, if you join us on the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14, we'll explain. And we'll be back with more KOAM Morning News for you right after this.
Here's a check of today's top headlines, the news you need to know before you head out the door. Kansas Governor Laura Kelly is proposing to give residents who pay income taxes a one-time rebate of $250. Governor Kelly outlined the proposal on Wednesday. The Republican-controlled legislature would have to approve the plan, and GOP lawmakers are expected to have proposals for ongoing income tax cuts instead of one-time rebates. Lawmakers' next annual session convenes January 10th. Governor Kelly said such rebates would be possible because Kansas has been collecting more in tax revenues than expected for months. Her proposal would provide $250 to individuals and $500 to married couples filing jointly. About 1.2 million filers would receive a total of $445 million. The Kansas Forest Service has revised down the number of acres burned in last week's wildfires. The agency posted on Facebook that around 163,000 acres burned December 15th. Not the 400,000 that was first estimated. Forest Service and the National Interagency Fire Coordination Center are using a new satellite data system to map ongoing wildfires. Service says that as heat, dust, and smoke cleared, satellite was able to get a clearer picture. The fires claimed 2 lives. Restrictive abortion laws in Texas that went into effect in September mean right now women are crossing the border to Oklahoma and Kansas for abortion services. The Trust Women Clinic says they saw fewer than 10 Texas patients in its Oklahoma and Kansas facilities before the Texas law went into effect. Now they're seeing more than 100 women a month, and they say they're struggling to keep up with the rush. Oklahoma has 3 abortion laws on a temporary injunction right now. They were supposed to go into effect November 1st. Well, new cases and hospitalizations from COVID-19 are surging throughout Missouri, and health leaders are warning of an approaching perfect storm if more people do not get vaccinated and take other precautions. Missouri is now seeing a 7-day average of daily new cases of more than 3,000. The average dipped below 1,000 in October. Meanwhile, hospitals are becoming overwhelmed in both the St. Louis and Kansas City areas, even before Christmas gatherings and before the fast-moving Omicron variant fully takes hold. That's a check of today's top headlines, the news you need to know before you head out the door.
We just kind of got stuck at 48 in both Joplin and in Carthage. Didn't quite make it to 50. Had a good run at it, though. We've got to remember, we still have a good 30 minutes before sunrise, so we're going to quickly jump up and do so, even with half the 4 states with some cloud cover for our Thursday morning. And it is because of the strong south wind moving in 10 to 15 miles per hour right now. We'll roll 15 to 20 miles per hour for the afternoon. But still, that's going to lift us up into the mid-60s later on. Usually after sunset, we see the wind die down a little bit, but it's not going to be the case. It's going to keep on coming in from the south. But look at this overnight lows. That's almost ridiculous for this time of year, only bottoming out at 54, so we get a head start as we make our way into possible record-setting territory for Friday.
All right, well, coming up today at noon, we're making seared scallops with Newburgh sauce. Yummy, in the Mr. Food Test Kitchen.
Do we have to wait until noon? Can we start like in an hour?
Right?
Coming up on CBS Mornings, we're going to meet the collectors who are breathing new life into the holidays with mini holiday villages ready to bring out the kid in all of us.
There you go. Or you can switch on over with us on Fox 14, where your only local morning news continues. And this morning, one of the kidnapped Haiti victims tells his tale about being kidnapped and returning home safely.
Also going to find out how Santas are spreading holiday joy this season. It may just go around the world to do that. We've got what? He's going to take off. He's going to take off tomorrow.
Yeah, and we're going to be tracking it.
We kind of got to interview the big man today if we're going to get that done.
Last chance.
Hey, that wraps up this Thursday. Enjoy some fresh air. Be safe. We'll do this all again tomorrow morning.
And we're going to do it again today at noon.